I really struggled with what date to give this one. Remakes are tricky because what's the line on when a remake or remaster becomes its own separate game for the purposes of ranking? For me, Dragon Quest III's HD 2D remake is the line on this. If a remake is as or more similar to the original than this game, they share the same spot, whereas a game like Final Fantasy III for the Nintendo DS, which released in 2006 and is leading my top 100 RPGs list today, comfortably falls on the other side of that line. What I love the most, I want to say the job system because I am an absolute sucker for them, but since we're specifically talking about the remake here, I'm going to go with the visuals. I think this is one of the best looking original DS games I've played. The cute AF various job models for the heroes and the glorious and terrifying final boss model are particularly effective. I am generally more of a pixels over polygons kind of girl, but these are some pretty ass polygons. What don't I love? Well, once again, focusing on what the remake specifically brought to the table, my least favorite thing is the 4 playable characters. Last week in my FF1 video, I said I didn't mind blank slate protagonists in games as long as the characters around them were interesting enough to make up for it. And while I felt like the first FF's NPCs did not meet that challenge, the ones in 3 do better at complementing the original version's 4 nameless heroes. The idea to give the 4 playable characters their own unique names and personalities for the remake was solid on paper, but instead of giving us compelling, interesting characters, they gave us, I don't actually really remember because they're so bleh. It's an unfortunate missed opportunity in my opinion. Just one more thing I want to add. Something I do find really interesting about the original FF3 is that to me it feels like the least risky sequel in the series, in that rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, it just refines and expands on the ideas of the first Final Fantasy, which I think it does well. There's little to nothing FF1 does that 3 doesn't do better, in my opinion. Even future, more traditional entries like 5 and 9 were far riskier in context for attempting to walk the series back closer to its roots. And not long after this remake released, its developer, Matrix Software, went on to make the original spin-off Final Fantasy, The 4 Heroes of Light, which further refined and expanded on these ideas. And then that game was followed up by its sequel-turned-spiritual successor, Bravely Default, which expanded and refined things further. So, in a way, we've gotten a sort of idea of what Final Fantasy would look like as a series if it had taken the more Dragon Quest-like philosophy of refine and expand over its own more reinvent and explore focused philosophy. And while I certainly prefer Dragon Quest over FF as a series for its consistency and personally enjoyed Bravely Default, this does help me greater appreciate the big swing approach of the mainline Final Fantasy series, because without those big swings we wouldn't have gotten the landmark FF7 or my personal favorite RPG of all time, FF6. So while I think both approaches are valid and needed in the game development space, I'd love to know which approach appeals more to you as a player. Do you prefer your sequels to refine and expand on the systems you already know you love, or do you prefer a series to do it like we did in the 80s and fully reinvent and explore with each entry? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you at the next dice roll. Bye!